Associated with occult circles, the Unicursal Hexagram blends deep meanings with simplicity. Symbolizing unity and transformation, it bridges the material and spiritual, the micro and macrocosm. At its core, it's a six-pointed star traced by a single continuous line. However, there is much more to it as it holds significance in occulture, science and mainstream. In this one, we'll explore 1. The symbol's depth and connection to Qabalistic philosophical and spiritual systems. 2. And most important, the technology the Unicursal Hexagram provides for magic. And 3. Bonus, why it may be the mightiest symbol in Western Magick. For convenience, we will also split that into 2 main parts. 1. Background and significance, and 2. Adoptions and technology. For those new to my work, I go by the name of POTB. I'm a creator discussing esotericism, human potential and creativity with occasional insights into my tools. Stick around if that sounds interesting, and if you need Qabalistic manuals or diagrams, visit my Etsy store as it likely has what you need. Definition. Related to mathematics, the term unicursal is a combination of uni, the Latin cursus or course, and au. It first appears in the 19th century and its definitions include 1. Having coordinates expressible rationally through a single parameter as opposed to bicursal, and 2. A curve or surface that is closed and can be drawn or swept out in a single movement. Mathematics. Similar to the traditional form, in mathematics the Unicursal Hexagram displays the unity of 2 equilateral triangles, thus it can be seen as a reflection, alluding to the principle of as above so below. Due to its disproportionate rays, some view the Unicursal Hexagram as more of a hyperbola, which is a shape resembling 2 open curvy lines that get further apart as they go out, and that is also comparable to an infinity symbol where the curves never meet. More on that by the end. Union. Like the traditional, the Unicursal Hexagram represents the union of opposites, fire and water, male and female, etc. Actually, this is what traditional Golden Dawn hexagrams consist of, fire and water triangles. It's worth mentioning that the Golden Dawn doesn't employ the Unicursal Hexagram. It utilizes its elemental or quote-unquote broken hexagrams for its lesser and supreme hexagram rituals, many of which you can find on my store. ARARITA. Like the regular, the Unicursal Hexagram represents the 6 classical planets around the Sun. It maps onto the 3 of 5 identically, covering their Sephiroth with that representing Bina. This order is ruled by the divine name ARARITA, which is an Otaricon, for 1 is his beginning, 1 is his individuality, his permutation is 1. In the Magick of Thelema / the Magick of Aleister Crowley, one Maiuduket points to Crowley's star sapphire as having the best explication of ARARITA. The use of this name and formula is to equate and identify every idea with its opposite, thus being released from the obsession of thinking any one of them is true and therefore binding, one can withdraw oneself from the whole sphere of the Ruach. Unquote. Thelema. The Unicursal Hexagram has a great significance in Thelema. In that context, it usually has a 5-petaled rose in the center. Associated with the rosy cross, this again symbolizes the union of the micro and macrocosm. In the Book of Thoth, Crowley says, "It has always been declared impossible to draw a Unicursal Hexagram, but this has now been accomplished. The lines, however, are strictly Euclidean, they have no breadth." Using Unicursal Hexagrams, the star sapphire is considered Crowley's greatest contribution to Western occultism and Thelema. However, since I don't have experience with it, I cannot comment on it, so let's proceed with the more fun part. Modifications. When rebuilding the Golden Dawn into the system of AA, Astrum Argentum, Crowley transformed the traditional Supreme into a greater hexagram ritual employing a single Earth or Saturn hexagram. A further adjustment uses the Unicursal Hexagram, and that includes 1. Saturn or Earth hexagrams for the lesser or general banishings and invocations, as Saturn is the 32nd path of the 4 elements and the universe card. And 2. Corresponding Sephirotic variations for the greater, working with specific forces, i.e. planets and signs. Now, let's recall that lesser means general, whereas greater and supreme specific or particular. Different preferences. Thelemic scholar David Shoemaker incorporates that slightly by replacing only the traditional solar hexagram, which otherwise implies tracing all others one after another and is kinda daunting. In his opening by Watchtower book Ceremonial Magic, Regardi advocates using nothing but Unicursal Hexagrams. Quote, "Use the Unicursal Hexagram only, the other forms are superfluous." Whether you decide to actually do so, my store has an interesting modification of OBW you might want to consider. Tracing. Traditional hexagrams trace their first triangle from the point associated with the force and the second at the opposite. They go clockwise to invoke and counterclockwise to banish. For Jupiter, that is Hesed followed by Hod. For Mars, Gebura followed by Netzach. Reflections. The tree diagram is largely based on reflections. It may turn out that the Unicursal Hexagram actually embodies this dynamic better. One reason is that the mentioned hexagrams utilize its crossing lines or the exact paths through which Hesed and Gebura emanate Hot and Netzach, 20 and 26 and 22 and 24. Emphasized by the method of invoking toward and banishing from the point associated with the force, this also alludes to the Qabalistic triads or triangles, a video on which you can see on this channel. The astral triangle mirrors the ethical with Tiferet as a synthesis of Hesed and Gebura, while Yesod, the personal subconscious, is properly directed only when Netzach and Hot collaborate. Let me know if you agree. Duplicates. Invented by McGregor Matters and adopted by Thelema for the pentagram formula, in the Unicursal Hexagram, the quote-unquote invoke toward and banish from the point method repeats several forms excluding names, sigils, and covers. Invoking Mars Gebura is the same as banishing Venus Netzach, invoking Jupiter Hesed the same as banishing Hot Mercury. In the pentagram, this is often viewed as an imperfection, as invoking water is also banishing air and vice versa. In the Unicursal Hexagram, the method aligns with the tree's dynamics, helping you to figure things out solely by practicing. Elements. Speaking of the elements, the Unicursal Hexagram can work with those too. One perspective mirrors the pentagram's attributions with fire in the bottom right, water in the top right, air in the top left, and earth in the bottom left. Based on my research, this usually goes with the Orm Solis approach of starting at the point and going clockwise to invoke and counterclockwise to banish. However, the same kinda misaligns with the covered reflections, bringing some inconsistencies. Found in the Book of Thought, more sense-making attributions are water as Hesed, fire as Gebura, air as Hot, and earth as Netzach. Esoteric scholar and book designer Michael Sanborn views the Unicursal Hexagram as rather elemental than planetary. Scott Michael Stanwyck suggests it is as above so below and thus an operant field in and of itself, as it overlaps micro and macrocosm. Now, for those not knowing, the operant theory offers that different lesser pentagrams and hexagrams determine the scope of the working and the linkage between micro and macrocosm, and more on that is in my content and manual on the subject. Incorporating the hyperbola concept in his Enochian hexagram ritual, Stanwyck uses the larger curves or the upper and the lower apex. Additionally, he employs planetary Enochian names to forge a union between the planetary and the elemental realms. What is interesting about this technique is that invoking any element can be viewed as uniting the curves, whereas banishing it as separating them. The curves of the hexagram represent opposing forces that can either be unified / invoked or separated / banished. This resembles the two branches of a hyperbola being either brought closer together or pushed apart. Juxtapose this to how the elements are grouped by spirit based on their density in the pentagram when using the invoke or banish from method, which is explained in my Supreme Pentagram video. Replacement. Some view the Unicursal Hexagram as a replacement for Golden Dawn's traditional elemental hexes, which is basically a macrocosmic representation of the elements. With a bit of imagination, you can see the 4 small rays as the 4 elements and directions, whereas the bigger 2 as spirit, encompassing everything while extending into depth and height. Let me know your thoughts. Want to rule them all? Okay, but why is this important? As discussed in another video, an advantage of the Greater over the Supreme Hexagram is working with the planets and signs dual nature, making yours unicursal opens it for the elements. As metaphysical concepts, the elements, planets, and signs are attributed to different aspects of consciousness: personal, interpersonal, and transpersonal. By mastering the Unicursal Hexagram, you can work all with a single symbol, and if you subscribe to the operant theory, you can also do that more micro or macrocosmically. Is this necessary? No. Should you give it a try and decide what to do with it? Definitely. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if it resonates. Check the links in the description, such as my manuals. Consider subscribing and supporting me. And thank you for your time.